You've just tuned your dial to Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I'm your host, Mr. Rob G. And joining me is my fellow host here, Nicole Coley Weber. And tonight we're broadcasting to you on our terrestrial affiliates across North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, KMPL, and Odyssey Radio. Remember, you can access our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, please hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Spaced Out Radio and at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is Spaced Out Radio, where the options are endless. You can stay up to date with the SOR Newswire, get some official Spaced Out swag, plus rock out to some Bumblefoot and so much more. Now, today we have an awesome show for you. We should be having joining us shortly our guest, Mr. Rick Doty. And we'll be going ahead and asking some great questions. And I think we'll have a great time with that today. And as far as that goes, we'll be jumping into some fun stuff for hour 3. So you make sure to stick around because tonight we plan to go deep. And remember, it can only happen here on Spaced Out Radio. So let me go ahead and jump into our chat. And obviously we need to see who hopped in here first. So let's go ahead and take a look. Ski. And it appears the gold medal will go to Mark Sanchez. Let's see. Silver goes to Ruth Kleber. Thank you both for coming and joining us. And then the bronze looks like that goes to Scott Rosen. So Scott, thanks for coming in. Thanks for joining us tonight. Also, we have David Rodriguez. Thanks for coming. Race fan, thank you for coming in tonight, joining us on this wonderful Saturday night. Roger Murray, thanks for coming in. Appreciate you. Anonymous Rex, Tim Senor, thanks for coming in. Appreciate you. Let's see who else we have. We have Randy Petticoat. Thanks for coming in, or Petticourt. And let's see here. We do have Shelly Montgomery joining us. Thanks for coming in. Let's see. Disarray. Thanks for coming in. Never seen your name before. Thanks for joining us. Welcome. We have Iron Mike 212. Thanks for joining us tonight. Totally appreciate you coming in. To Mothman, thanks for coming in, sir. The demon who's hosting is Mr. Rob G and Nicole Coley Weber getting it in tonight. And we have Road Flare, another new name. Thank you for coming in. Welcome. True Seeker, thank you for coming in. I appreciate you. Mary R, thanks for joining us tonight. Let's see, Super Crazy Movie Geek, consider myself one as well. Thanks for coming in. Let's see. Okay, Al DE, thank you for coming in. I don't know if I said Decipher, but if not, thanks for coming in, Decipher. Avita NY, thank you for coming. Mary R, thank you for joining us. Carl Bittner, thanks for coming in. Also known as Human Carl. Browndorf, thanks for coming in. We have JSCO77. Thank you for joining us tonight. Lars Jansen, appreciate you coming through. Thomas Rock, thanks for joining us. Nancy Thames, thank you for coming. And we're almost to the end. Tom Whitmore, thank you for coming in.
Hey, Tom.
Yes. Chastity Moore, thank you for coming in. Digger Dog, thanks for coming. Appreciate you. Derek Galloway, thanks for coming. Van Gold, aka Lovey Love, aka Dr. Love, thank you for coming in. Loch Nessa, appreciate you. Jay Rhino says, let's get it. Thanks for coming in, Jay Rhino. Appreciate you coming. And okay, Derek Galloway, you have questions for Rick Doty? Yeah, definitely. And just, I might as well say this now. So any questions for Rick, just put them in caps, and then we'll be sure to ask them at the end of the second hour. Little Cam 51, thank you for coming today. Just another guy named Harry, thank you for coming. Another new name. I love it. I love it. I love it. Draculticon, thanks for coming in. And are we down to the bottom? Almost. Let's see. Joe Monk, thank you for coming, Joe Monk. Oh, chat room's filling up here. Karen E, thank you for coming. I appreciate
it. She's one of my girls, local. It's nice to see her on.
Nice. Flying Monkeys, thanks for coming in. Paramore, appreciate you. Thanks for coming. Let's see. We are almost down here. I think we are now down at the bottom. We are. Okay, yeah, and might as well, while you guys are in here, we just got started. Go ahead and hit the like button if you haven't done it yet. If you have not hit the subscribe, if you're new, we would totally appreciate you doing that, and hit the notification. We go 7 days a week here at Space Out Radio, so there is always something on, and it's always going down here at Space Out Radio. So we'd love to have you come back and join us for future shows. Kevin Kingsmore, another new name, recognizing. Thank you for coming in. Cats Creep Midnight, thank you for coming. Alex Sanchez, thank you for coming. Oh yeah, YouTube does that, Race Fan. I do know that. I'm aware it definitely does that. Let's see. Okay. All right. So, and just to preface this, so we want to be respectful of the guests tonight. You know, everybody has their opinions, and you're fine to have your opinion. But let's try to be respectful and ask really good questions. Let's ask really, really good questions tonight, okay? and let's move the conversation forward. I am pinning questions right now, so if you're already putting them in the chat, like Anonymous Rex did here, then I would definitely do that. Yeah, Joe Monk is pretty much right. I mean, Troll Patrol is in effect. You know, let's be adults here tonight and have a great conversation. So, okay. All right. So what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and go over an article first here before we get started. And let's see here. All right. So I'm going to come on screen. I'm going to put myself here. Okay. All right. So let's do this. There was one topic that I wanted to go ahead and take a look at. And before we jump into what we're jumping into today, and that is going to be, there was a story, it was an article rather, that was put out by Merrick von Rennenkamp. This was done on thehill.com. If you're familiar with this article, Christopher Mellon actually retweeted this out, and I thought it was pretty interesting and something that we can definitely talk about real quick just to kind of get the night going, right? So let me go ahead and bring this up. We already have this queued. And you may have read this article, but yeah, something we should discuss. So we have, let's see here. All right. So technology surprise. Are China, Russia ahead of us in UFO retrieval research? So that was a crazy question, right? So we talk about, the U.S. government hiding potentially reverse engineered craft. And then also just when we differentiate UAPs from UFOs, we understand what UFOs are. And then we talk about UAPs potentially being, obviously being things that aren't UFOs and are most likely top secret projects. So this headline is kind of surprising because the normal narrative is the UAP conversation where we talk about us covering up government tech, which we know we're doing for sure. And so there's no effort for China or Russia to go ahead and get that. But then at the same time, parallel to that, China and Russia are heading off their own UFO crash retrieval and research program, reverse engineering as well. So I'm going to go ahead and read this article just in case you have not looked into this, but it's pretty interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and start it off. Last week, a former senior Defense Intelligence Agency scientist became the 10th ex-government official, military officer, or scientist to allege or suggest publicly that the U.S. government has recovered at least one UFO. The overwhelming majority of these individuals also claim that the government transferred the retrieved craft to defense contractors for technical and scientific analysis. Separately, sources interviewed by investigative journalist Michael Schellenberger alleged that defense contractors are studying a dozen or more recovered UFOs. All of Schellenberger's sources claim that excessive secrecy is hindering a comprehensive understanding of the retrieved object's enigmatic technology. Moreover, an expanded network of sources told Schellenberger that at least 30 whistleblowers familiar with these alleged UFO retrieval and analysis efforts have provided testimony to Congress. The U.S. government's congressionally mandated UFO analysis efforts have provided testimony to Congress. The U.S. government's congressionally mandated UFO analysis office and the investigative watchdogs that oversee the U.S. Department of Defense and intelligence community. Importantly, the Inspector General for the intelligence community deemed the lead UFO whistleblower's core allegations, quote, credible and urgent. Moreover, the whistleblower, former intelligence official and U.S. Air Force veteran David Grush, is represented by the intelligence community's first Inspector General. This high-profile attorney, now in private practice, sat prominently behind Grush during an extraordinary July 26 congressional hearing. As Rep. Mike Gallagher, a member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, stated recently, new protections enacted by Congress resulted in, quote, all sorts of UFO whistleblowers coming out of the woodwork. These individuals, Gallagher said, are telling congressional investigators that they've been part of this or that UFO program, resulting in a variety of pretty intense conversations. As Senate Intelligence Vice Chair Marco Rubio has put it, one of the two astounding possibilities is now at hand. Either dozens of credible individuals are gradually revealing the, quote, biggest story in human history, or a sizable cohort of high-level government officials holding top security clearances is, quote, crazy. Reflecting on the stature of the individuals who spoke to Congress, Rubio asked rhetorically, what incentive would so many people with that kind of qualification, these are serious people, have to come forward and make something up? Indeed, given the penalties for making false statements to investigative agencies, it is unlikely that these individuals, some of whom claim direct firsthand knowledge of the alleged UFO retrieval and reverse engineering efforts, are participating in a sophisticated disinformation effort. So are numerous high-level government officials delusional in making false claims of firsthand UFO knowledge to investigators? Such a stark case of social contagion would amount to a concerning and extraordinary development. Moreover, if dozens of senior officials are indeed, quote, crazy, they have still somehow convinced key members of Congress to treat their extraordinary allegations with utmost seriousness. In July, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, along with the bipartisan group of 5 other senators, introduced a remarkable UFO-related legislation. Following reporting that China and Russia may also have retrieved UFOs, language in the legislation alluding to the, quote, increasing potential for technology surprise from foreign adversaries takes on a particular significance. While the exact details of foreign UFO retrieval and reverse engineering efforts remain murky, Grush has described a, quote, publicly unknown Cold War over recovered and exploited physical material, a competition with near-peer adversaries over the years to identify UAP crashes, landings, and retrieve the material for exploitation. Let's see, okay. Over the years, publicly unknown Cold War recovered and exploited physical material competition with near-peer adversaries over the years to identify UAP crashes, landings, and retrieve the material for exploitation, reverse engineering to garner asymmetrical national defense advantages. According to retired U.S. Army Colonel Carl Nell, who served alongside Grush in an early iteration of the U.S. government's contemporary UFO analysis efforts, Grush's assertions concerning the existence of a terrestrial arms race occurring sub rosa over the past 80 years focus on reverse engineering technologies of unknown origin is fundamentally correct. These allegations from 2 former high-ranking defense officials, in tandem with independent investigative reporting, raise a host of national security questions and issues, and clearly Congress is paying attention. The Schumer-led legislation, for example, defines non-human intelligence as any sentient, intelligent, non-human life form, regardless of nature or ultimate origin, that may be presumed responsible for UFOs. Notably, the term non-human intelligence appears 24 times in the legislation, alongside frequent references to biological evidence of non-human intelligence. Critically, the legislation Schumer proposed defines legacy UFO programs precisely as whistleblowers allege any government or private sector endeavors to collect, exploit, or reverse engineer technologies of unknown origin or examine biological evidence of living or deceased non-human intelligence. Just as importantly, the draft legislation mirrors whistleblower allegations that recovered UFOs are now in the hands of defense contractors. If passed as drafted, the bill would require that any and all recovered UFOs and biological evidence of non-human intelligence that may be controlled by private persons or entities be turned over to the U.S. government in the interest of the public good. A different section of the same legislation, also sponsored by Senator Gillibrand and Rubio, offers some intriguing glimpse into the programs described by whistleblowers. Beyond putting an immediate halt to any unreported UFO recovery and reverse engineering efforts, the Gillibrand-Rubio legislation describes in some detail retrieval efforts capturing, recovering, and securing UFOs, scientific study analyzing retrieved UFOs for the purpose of determining properties, material composition, method of manufacture, origin, characteristics, usage application, performance, operational modalities, security, and counterintelligence, managing and providing security for protecting activities and information related to UFOs from disclosure or compromise, and reverse engineering efforts, replicating UFO technology or performance based on analysis of materials or sensor and observational information associated with UFOs. Of particular interest, the legislation alludes to the existence of highly advanced forms of propulsion derived from recovered UFOs and based on, quote, technology other than chemical propellants, solar power, or electric ion thrust. Intriguingly, following the classified briefing from the Department of Defense Inspector General on UFOs this week, Rep. Eric Burleson stated, it appears somebody has discovered something, some advanced form of propulsion or technology that may actually change all of our lives. Should it indeed exist, such technology could pose new dangers or solve any number of global challenges. But as the Gillibrand-Rubio legislation notes in its Sense of Congress section, extraordinary secrecy surrounding retrieved UFOs is creating, quote, technology and security stovepipes that may threaten the nation's global lead in critical advanced technologies. So, with that being said, obviously there is the race behind the scenes between these nations, our nation included, a Cold War type of race to reverse engineer these craft. So thought it was pretty interesting that this story had come out with the Hill, Merrick von Rennenkamp, who definitely covers other UFO related stories as well. And I don't know what you guys think of that. Ponder on it. But what we're going to do now is go ahead and bring in our guest for tonight, which is none other than Mr. Rick Doty. So let me go ahead and bring Mr. Doty to the stage. Hi, how are you, Rick?
Good.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us tonight here at Spaced Out Radio. We're so glad to have you. And okay, yeah, so kind of just getting into this, Rick. I kind of wanted to jump right in with you. I think we have you to the end of hour 2. So a lot of people out there are pretty familiar, with the overall story, but I kind of want to treat this as if our viewers may be introducing themselves to you for the first time. So if some of the things, obviously, I'm sure you've gone over a million times on various shows, but I would like to go ahead and see if you could provide us like a detailed overview of your background and career within the government agencies, and then kind of how those things led you in and tied you into UFOs, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, Rob. Yeah, thank you for having me on. I started my government career in the United States Air Force, active duty. I served 4 years. I got out, went to college at Pacific Lutheran University, got a degree, then came back into through the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and they assigned me to the Air Force Office of Special Investigations as a counterintelligence officer. So my father was in the Air Force. He was in intelligence. My uncle, Edward Doty, was in the Air Force. He was a Project Blue Book investigator. He investigated the famous Lonnie Zamora case in Socorro, New Mexico. And so people always ask me, because of my parents and my uncle, my father and my uncle, was I recruited into intelligence? No one ever told me I was actually recruited because of my father and uncle, but I believe I was. After college, actually my senior year in college, I was approached by somebody who told me if I wanted a job to contact this number. I did. I had to wait some time. Actually, I had a job in Portland, Oregon for a while before I was recruited in U.S. intelligence. I went to the intelligence operations course in Langley, Virginia. Then I went to OSI Academy, and my first assignment was at Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So that's a pretty good background on me.
Wow. Okay. Definitely. And I guess so you mentioned, there were some ties there through family, as far as them investigating UFO incidents. So when were you first introduced? Was it prior to you going into the service, or was it once you started looking at these programs?
I can tell you the absolute truth that although my father was an intelligent, wasn't in UFOs that I knew of. I never heard him mention the subject. We travel a lot all over the place, and he was always in civilian clothes, but he worked in intelligence. I met my uncle, of course, at a young age. He never mentioned anything about UFOs to me. When I went into the regular Air Force, I served as a combat controller. I never heard anything about UFOs. And then I went into government, U.S. intelligence. I went through 18 weeks of the intelligence operations course, another 16 weeks of the Air Force Office of Special Investigation Academy, another 9 weeks in some other training. And at not one time during that training did I read or was briefed in any kind of program involving UFOs. I wasn't briefed in until after I got to my first duty station, which was Ellsworth, and I was involved in an investigation involving UFOs. And that's when I was briefed in to the United States government involvement with the subject of UFOs and extraterrestrials. And that was in 1979.
Wow. Okay. What specific duties or tasks were you assigned when you were initially presented with the possibility of working with this on the UFO subject?
Well, I was a counterintelligence officer in the base, and my job was to protect sensitive and classified programs against spy, so against the threat of disclosure, unauthorized disclosure, and also any kind of case that would have been in the realm of the unknown, so to speak. And when my first case was involving a UFO that allegedly landed on the Kirtland Air Force Base, I went out and I started the investigation. And at that point, I wasn't briefed into the program. And after the spending about 7 hours at the scene of this alleged landing, the next morning when I came back to the office, my supervisor, who was a civilian, told me that I was going to be to go to a certain place on the base, high security office, and get briefed into a special access program. And so I did. I went there to a special security office, and I was briefed then into the special access program involving the United States government's involvement in UFOs. To tell you the truth, during the briefing, they told me that the United States government had recovered many UFOs. The briefing started at Roswell. The Roswell crash, actually Corona, New Mexico, is where the actual craft crashed. The debris field from the antenna off the craft in Corona landed in a Brazil field. And then also 2 years later, they found another craft out in western New Mexico, the same type of craft that crashed near Corona. They showed us films, they showed us a recovery operation, and then they went into a detailed briefing about other crash sites around the Southwest United States. And then they went into some administrative duties that we would have to handle as far as investigating these things, how to report them up to the headquarters, that everything had to go through the Defense Intelligence Agency, and everything was a special access program, meaning it was highly classified. No part of it could have been anything other than a top secret category. After being briefed, since this is the first time I was ever involved or had knowledge of this subject, I was somewhat confused, to say the least. I thought it was some sort of a psychological program at first, that we were being tested, because it wasn't just me going through this. There were a number of other agents and people going through this briefing. And when I got back to the office, I went in and my boss, John, his name was John. He said, "What do you think?" I said, "Is this stuff real?" And he said, "It sure is." And then we went into a secure area and he started talking to me about it. And then I realized, my God, this stuff is real. And then I started investigating cases involving UFOs, alien abductions, and so forth. And I realized, after about 6 or 8 months, that everything I was briefed into, it was absolutely real.
Wow. And I want to go into some of that stuff, but Coley, do you have any questions right now?
I definitely do.
Okay, go ahead, jump in.
Phone unmute. Okay, sorry. I don't know if it's the unmute.
We can hear you fine. Go ahead, Coley. Now you're muted.
Okay, try this again. I apologize. My hands were like over here. So anyway, when you're talking about the crafts and like ETs and things like that, do you believe that everybody here, like I'm just going down the line and I'm thinking, how is it all possible, especially with, early interpretation and things like that? Do you think that humanoid extraterrestrials live among us? Do you think that like reptilian, that's just one. I don't know if that's true, but there is something definitely who's in control of this. And I don't see like, they have such like sophisticated crafts, but what bothers me through time, it's like they evolved kind of with time, like they used to see them, they were like bigger, like my grandmother was the first one to see them. So I'm just kind of wondering like your take on if in fact they are currently here. Not to say that there's not different ones, star systems and things like that above us, but specifically ones in our government, like our neighbors, people that, walk down your street every day.
Well, during my time in it, I was briefed into the program, and I knew that there were 5 different ET races that have visited Earth. Now, I didn't have access to every single thing involved in this program. There were, at my time, during the time I was in the 70s and 80s, there were 122 other intelligence officers doing exactly the same thing I was doing throughout the United States. And they all had a different job. it depended on the need to know what information I had access to and what information I was investigating. I knew there were 5 extraterrestrial races. They were all different. They all came from different star systems. They were biologically different. Their technology was different. So to say, do we have extraterrestrials walking among us right now? I would have to say yes. But I don't know who they are, and I can't tell you one from another. Remember, these ETs, some of them are thousands and thousands of years more advanced in technology than we are. And so they may be able to just change their appearance, or maybe even change their where they're how they get from where you see them, maybe into another dimension and back. That's about the best way I can explain it. But as far as are they walking among us, I'd say yes, they are.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta think there's both sides of the coin. So you said 5 different types. Can you describe like the differences, or do you know the differences? Like, one's like the short grays, one's the tall grays, or how do you classify them?
Well, I don't classify them. The U.S. intelligence classifies them.
You know what I mean.
Yeah,
like,
I understand what you're saying. The DIA classifies them, and the big question is, how do we know who they are? How did we identify them? And all I can say is the Defense Intelligence Agency classified them. I don't know specifically. I was never briefed into everything involving the extraterrestrials, but were 5 races. Well, the first race I knew was the Ebens. That's the ones that crashed at Corona in 1947. We had one in captivity from 1947 to 1952 at Los Alamos. We had another race that is another gray looking, but they were a little bit taller than the Ebens. They came from another star group. And then the DIA classified them under names like trantiloids. We had a trantiloid, a quataloid, a hepaloid. I don't know why, and was never briefed into why they named them those things. But some of those names were, as Grush had talked about. And so I know that they existed, and although I never actually had any dealings with them, and maybe today we know, and I left government service in 1988. I went to work for the Institute for Advanced Studies at Austin, Dr. Putoff. I worked for him for 12 years, but I didn't have access to that different program. No, not NIDS. No. It was just at the Institute. I wasn't involved in NIDS. So I can say what I had access to and what I knew about. And this stuff's all over the internet. I mean, if you look real carefully, these 5 species are listed on the internet. I'd have to look for the list here someplace, but there are 5. The Greys, and these names are given to them by the Defense Intelligence Agency. Okay, they came from Zeta Reticuli. They were the Ebens. They were 38.5 light years from Earth. The Archeloids, they are various in heights, but between 5'9" and 5'8". They normally look like they appear in a grayish jumpsuit, black slanted eyes, oval heads, 4 fingers, protruded ears and nose. They're distinguished by their arms and having double elbows. Their feet have 4 toes. Their ankles and feet are contained in one large bone. The quataloids, they're genetically engineered aliens. They come in 2 types, insect and humanoid. The hepaloids, they're gray, similar to the Ebens, but they're a little bit taller. They're about 4 to 5 feet tall. Dark gray skin, large black eyes, double opening lids. They have 4 fingers and 4 toes. And then finally, the trantiloids. They're human looking, blondes. They can be confused with the Nordics or people who are from the Nordic countries of Norwegian, Norway, Sweden, and Finland. And that's it. That's the four, and how they're classified. I don't know why they're classified that way. There's a lot more classified information pertaining to them, which I never had access to. So
I have to
like I'm saying, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was saying today, 40 years later, there's a lot of information, good information, that there's probably 10 to 12 other species that we've had dealings with. But those, during my time, those are the 5 that I knew.
And have you had direct contact with any of them?
No, never had any direct contact with any of them.
How close did they let you get?
Pardon?
How close did they let you get to them?
I never had contact with them.
No,
So
I didn't know. If you knew where they, obviously you knew where they were there, or like things were going on, or is that just like,
well,
kind of hush hush for a while?
No, cases that we investigated involving extraterrestrials, the witnesses and victims described these aliens, and then other people became involved when they had actual contact with them. Not me. I mean, they may come to me and say, I had a close encounter with this particular creature at land. And I'll give you an example. This Air Force captain assigned to Kirtland Air Force Base was fishing at a remote lake in New Mexico. He saw something land. He was by himself. He sees something land some distance away from the lake. He thought at first it was a helicopter, but it didn't sound like a helicopter to him. So he continued to fish. He had a campsite near this lake, and all of a sudden this creature, about 6 foot tall, looked like a praying mantis to him, walked right up to him. Now that would have been something similar to a quataloid. It didn't say anything to him. It didn't speak to him, but it sat down probably 20 feet from him. Of course, he'd never seen anything before like that in his life. He was scared. He didn't know what to do, but he sat down too. And apparently this thing was trying to communicate, but he didn't realize it at the time. It never approached him any closer than about 20 feet or so. Never threatened him that he felt, but it kept pointing at things. It would point with his arms at different things, and he didn't understand what that meant. And then he realized that maybe this was an alien from another planet. And now he thought, well, maybe how do I communicate with him? So he took a stick and started drawing things on the ground in the dirt. A house, then he would say house. He'd draw a circle and say earth and so forth. Picture graph, so to speak. Well, it kind of caught on real quick, and it started drawing things. And this thing lasted about 30 minutes. And then he knew that there was another one some distance away. He could just barely see it through the woods. And this is a wooded area that he was at. And he was then somewhat startled because now there's 2 of them and he's by himself. But then the one that he was making contact with got up, turned around and walked away. And then as it walked away through the woods, he got up and walked up on this little embankment so he could look down, and he saw then the craft. It was an oval shaped craft. The 2 aliens got inside and then took off and flew away. The Monday after, this was a weekend, the Monday after he saw this, he reported it to his commander. This captain worked around nuclear weapons on Kirtland. So he reported it to his commander, and his commander said, you need to go to report it to OSI. So he came into OSI and reported that to me. he actually drew what the creature looked like. And so I had a database that I could compare this to. And I, all we could do was take a report because he wasn't threatened. He wasn't abducted. He didn't have any missing time. So we just made a report of it. And if we tell him, if you've had any contact again, let us know. And that's just an example of one. And this is a subtle case, considering there were a lot more complicated cases than that.
So the data that you were getting, where you were obtaining that for MUFON, there was a backdoor to MUFON that we found. So the data, I have to ask, what exactly, from an experiencer, I'm an experiencer, right? So I want to know what you know about, you know what I mean? You probably know more about it than many of us, like, and what the hell's going on, what the hell happened, or why it's, happening or being allowed, because I'm sure that, the government's not gonna be like, oh, wow, something that's been holding global air dominance over us and air superiority. Like, there's no way. There is no way with what we're seeing now. But I'm just kind of curious onto the experiencer's perspective, and if it's true, that they do tend to watch the experiencers, and maybe why.
Well, during my time in, the only people I've dealt with were victims, abductees, Air Force or military personnel that had contact. The Paul Benowitz case, and there's other cases similar to the Paul Benowitz case. And so the abductees, some of the abductees were men, some were female. They had an experience. They didn't want this to happen. I never actually had or investigated anybody that was an experiencer or a contactee, somebody that wanted this or went out and sought it. So I'm not familiar with what the experiencers would how they would the AETs would influence experiencers. I know the abductees. Some of them went through hideous medical examinations. We had a woman, and this woman right now is a whistleblower. She's one of the 88 whistleblowers that's been screened by the Department of Defense IG. She was an Air Force officer, and she had been abducted. During the 80s, she was abducted about 25 different times. And she'd come away with her fingernails missing, her toenails missing, bleeding from her vaginal area, pokes and holes all over her body. And this wasn't just one time. She went through torture, basically, from this one particular species of ETs, and which were the tall grays. And she couldn't understand. She never actually communicated with them. But what they would do is they would tell her things or put thoughts in her mind of what they're going to do, but they would never answer any of her questions.
So do you think that
hold on, Coley, let me reel him back in real quick, Coley. Rick, I have a few questions I need to get off here. So just kind of where we left off. Let me rewind and bring you back a little bit. So in the last statement that you gave me, you talked about when you were introduced to this UFO topic, you spoke about a movie that you were shown, and apparently I've heard you talk about this, that depicted ET craft and body retrieval. So you've actually seen a video, or they showed you one where they had the craft and the bodies. Would you mind talking about that? And then if you could elaborate on, now that hindsight, if you could elaborate and say what type of beings you thought those were.
Yeah, when we got the briefing, the first thing they showed us after the introduction of the two intelligence officers that were giving us this briefing, the first it was a movie. It was actually a 35 millimeter movie an old Army Air Force movie. It was dated in the 40s. There was a narrator, somebody talking. It was a black and white film, and it showed the Roswell or the Corona recovery. That's the film that we saw, and it depicted the craft that had been wedged into the ground. It showed the bodies of some of the ETs, and they showed briefly the only one that was alive in the craft, which they named it Eva, and that was it was standing next to a military vehicle. They also showed a tent. Inside of the tent, they had a number of things that they had taken out, apparently taken out or left at a crash scene. There were gadgets. All I can call them is gadgets because I couldn't identify what they were. That was on a table inside a tent, and the narrator was talking about these things came out of the craft or were found at the crash scene. There was probably a good 3 or 4 minutes of the cameraman panning all over the craft. It had been partially wedged into the ground. It looked like a round craft or a saucer-shaped craft to me from that perspective. It didn't show the inside of the craft. It showed the top and the bottom, at least as much as you could see that was in the open on the bottom. It showed a lot of military people all around gathering debris and gathering other things, taking soil samples and so forth. That's the actual movie that I can remember, and that was depicting the crash recovery of the crash of the UFO in 47. Actually, the recovery was at Corona, New Mexico, and then they showed the debris field. And also they showed some people, some civilians. The actual people that found this craft at Corona was an archaeological team from Albuquerque, and they were in the film. They were standing off to one side, and a camera had panned over past them, and that's what I could remember in the movie. It lasted about 30. I'd say 30, a little over 30 minutes.
Okay, and then you talked earlier about the 5 species that the government has listed. Which one of those would you say were the ones that were recovered in that video? Or
the number one, the ebens, the grays. Evens? Yeah, the even. In fact, the narrator talked about I guess this film was made sometime, or the narration of it seemed to jump in time because some of the things that narrator was talking about wouldn't have been, he wasn't on the scene. I'm saying that some of the information that he's talking about was found out sometime later, but he talks about them being from Zeta Reticuli. Now, how we know that, I don't know. I wasn't ever briefed into it. We had a live ET, and apparently we were able to communicate with him at some point during that 5 years we had him. And so, and I don't know anything other than what I saw about him in that movie. I know that there's other people out there, such as Linda Howell, who actually interviewed the handling officer, the Air Force intelligence officer that lived with Eva for those 5 years, and she spoke many times about what he told her. So, but I only know what I heard from that and what I saw in the film.
Yeah,
so when you're looking at them, do they have genders, or are they just one species? Does that make sense?
Yeah, they're
like when
have gender.
I saw them, they do have
male and female.
Like,
yes.
Okay. There's not like
this
a
was
lot
a male.
Of when I've seen them, there's okay.
Yeah, yeah. Eva one was a male, but there were male and females, not on the craft. I don't believe the bodies were all of males.
And what do you think that they were here for?
That's a good question. I think they're explorers. I think at some point when we were able to communicate with Eva, he said we were explorers, and they had visited Earth before 2000. Well, again, time was not the same between them and us, and but I think we figured it was about 2,000 years ago they had visited Earth, and they, I guess, came back to look at Earth to see how it had advanced. And I'm just guessing that because I don't know that for a fact. I'm just guessing that.
Absolutely. Going to, I guess, have to ask you really quickly. You talked about the whistleblowers before, and I know that you were recently in DC. So I was wondering what the word was out there, what you could possibly share, because I know the different branches of the government, they're all kind of different, right, in how they approach this topic. So it's kind of wondering if you go into that a little bit.
Well, yeah, there's there's a slew of 3-letter intelligence agencies: NSA, the CIA, the DIA, NRO, Army intelligence, naval intelligence, and they all have their own filing cabinets containing information on what that agency or what that branch of the government's investigated. And then, of course, we got the Air Force. They investigated UFOs right up not until 1969. They claimed after the Condom report, they claimed they didn't investigate them anymore, but we know what they did secretly, and that's what I did. And the DIA took over the files from the Air Force after 1969 because DIA was a relatively new intelligence agency. They were formed in 1961, and so they wanted a job. So they raised their hand and said, "We'll take the UFO files," and they ran with it.
So do you think they were only looking in the military, or were they looking into civilians as well?
Who's that? The ETs?
No. I'm the 3-letter agencies. Like, are they?
Oh no,
no.
They were gathering intelligence pertaining to it. They've done it back since 1947. We had Project Grudge, all that, all those reports were filtered through different agencies, the CIA, and then the Air Force. So each branch of the service had their own files on UFOs. And then, of course, the U.S. Space Force was created some years ago, and now they have their own files because they're responsible for collecting signal intelligence, satellite intelligence from space-based satellites. So they're gathering stuff probably every minute of every day, and they have to categorize it. So when I was back in Washington in January of 2022, I was interviewed by the DODIG. They had some of my cases that I generated at Kirtland, and we talked about it. They wanted to know where some of these files were kept, which I thought was pretty odd because, if they're the Department of Defense Inspector General, why didn't they know where they were kept? But people that are outside the government, they don't understand how the government actually operates from within. Every agency is independent that collects data on UFOs, and they share what they want to share, and they keep what they want to keep. And it's kind of like a game to them that, we're going to keep this stuff because if somebody wants it, they're going to have to come to us to get it. And so, and that's the way it was when I was in. There's information that I needed that I couldn't get. But in January of last year, they had reports, my reports, that were heavily redacted. And they showed them to me, and I said, well, what do you, I mean, this is 40 years ago. What do you want me to know? I mean, I don't remember everything I typed in this thing or everything I did. He said, well, you know, we need to know this, this, and this. I said, you can't go over to OSI and get a clear copy of this? And they said, no, they won't give it to us. They said it's a special access program and we are not cleared for it. I thought, well, you're the DODIG. You just can't go over and get it. And that's the mentality of the United States government at this time right now under this disclosure.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Rick, we're going to go ahead and pause right there for the break. We'll be right back in hour number 2, asking more questions to our guest, Rick Doty, only here on Spaced Out Radio. We'll be back. All right. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio after hour number 2 with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. And that's Coley Weber. And we continue with our guest, Rick Doty. We're going to go ahead and jump in to some more questions here. But first, all the space travelers out there, consider taking the next step and join the club. That's right. You can join our SOR Space Travelers Club for as little as $5 by joining our Patreon. Get some official Spaced Out swag at spacedoutradio.com. Rick, I wanted to go ahead and start. I have a few questions. I'm going to have to get these off before we go into our viewer questions. So I'm going to hit you with a few here. So I know you were involved with the Avary, and if you want to go ahead and talk about that, and then I have a few questions as well after that.
The Avary, yeah, back in the 1970s, a group of individuals within the government, the intelligence community, started a working group. And I just happened to get involved in this. I didn't volunteer for it. Somebody that had worked with my father many years ago in intelligence got me into the group. Anyways, the Avary was a list of people with names, bird names. We didn't name, the Avary didn't name us. Somebody from the outside named us when they learned about who we were. But for instance, Blue Jay was Dr. Christopher Green, a former head of CIA's UFO files. Seagull was Dr. Bruce Maccabee. Pelican was Ron Pandolfi, who worked for the CIA. Owl was Hal Puthoff, a physicist with the Institute for Advanced Studies. And of course, he was famous for SRI and remote viewing. Penguin was Dr. John Alexander, or Colonel John Alexander, an Army intelligence officer. At that time, he worked for Los Alamos. Hawk was Ernie Keller-Strauss. He worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and he was one of the ones that actually had contact with extraterrestrials in what they call the White Room. Chickadee was Commander Scott, a PhD and former officer with Naval Intelligence, and he was senior aide to Senator Clayton Pell. Condor was Captain Bob Collins, the Air Force scientist. Now, this is going to surprise a lot of people. I always said I wasn't ever Falcon. I wasn't Falcon. Falcon was Richard Helms, former director of Central Intelligence. Sparrow, I was Sparrow. I was a special agent with OSI. Chicken Little was Dan Smith. He's a civilian, but he was a facilitator for us and our meetings. We met periodically to discuss the subject of disclosure. We actually wanted disclosure to occur back in those days, and we had formed a committee to look at how we could do, a group, a quasi-government group, could facilitate disclosure. And we were in existence right up until the late 90s. And some members that came and went was Major Ed Dames. He was a remote viewer. Admiral Bobby Inman, John McCone, William Colby, Stansville Turner, Eric Davis, and Robert Bigelow. And that's the Avary.
So can you talk about Robert Bigelow's involvement with?
He was just he wouldn't attend every meeting. He would attend a periodic meeting, especially most of the meetings were on the East Coast at secure locations. And when I say secure locations, they were at safe houses that were belonged to U.S. intelligence. They were on military installations, and most of them occurred in Virginia, Maryland, a couple in Pennsylvania. So Bob Bigelow, he'd show up now and then, but he was just there. I don't know exactly what his role was. Again, I was
No, I
very,
know.
very low on the totem
It's-
pole. You know, I was just I was actually the field investigator for him. I would go out and do things for the Avary. So,
So how did they go though
So-
from reporting like UFOs to like the FAA and then all of a sudden they're to Robert Bigelow and then it's I believe NASA right now. So with the data, I have to ask, what are you looking for when you guys the experiencers, like the ones that I've seen a craft close up. Like I've seen the roper pole that he put together. I've seen other polls from the government that they, what they did. And obviously MUFON is a back door. So is there like specific things or what are they looking for? I guess, why would they even bother with an experiencer?
I don't know, because I as I said earlier, I didn't have any involvement with experiencers.
But
I don't know what.
heard things, throughout. I'm just very curious on the connection.
I don't know that the Avary never employed any that I know of, but there's so many different branches within the government that could have had experiencers. We had a lot of remote viewers working within various branches, and even today, but they don't call them remote viewers anymore, and within the military. But
What do they call them?
They call them. Geez, I had it here someplace. Somebody. They're called acquisition receivers or something to that effect. It's not remote viewers anymore. In the military, they did away with that years ago. The word remote viewing. It's acquisition something or another. They changed it sometime in the 2000s. They still use them, but you refer to them as a different name.
What do they, when they have identified craft, what do they categorize it as? Obviously, it wouldn't be a UFO.
No, within the intelligence, when you're in intelligence, you don't use the words. We never used UAPs during my time in, and UFOs are something that was reported, but then they were categorized as identification of extraterrestrial craft, i.e., C or I identified alien craft, IAC. Yeah. The ones that we knew, we would categorize it and we would refer to them by code names, such as cardinals. Cardinal, if we had anyone in our possession, I know when I was working at Area 51, they referred to them as cardinals. We had Cardinal 1, 2, and 3. So obviously we had 3 extraterrestrial crafts that we got somehow. I was never briefed into that. I don't know how we got them, but probably from crash sites. I don't think that we had any exchange programs then, and maybe we did. I don't know. I've heard rumors about that, but I was never briefed into that. And remember, I didn't have access to everything. I had
I totally get that. Yeah, it's like right. But there's still like I've found like in the need to know though, you still talk to other people and kind of can put together, it's happening right in front of you and all the background. It's hard not to see some of this stuff. So I'm curious, so the crafts that you're talking about, obviously people, that's why it drives me crazy when they go UFO, or UAP, like if you can identify this, like that's not the same terminology that's there, but how many different classifications do they have of crafts? Like how do they, put them in those categories?
Well, that's the point that's classified. If you use something other than UFO in a report, that means that you already know what the craft is, and you'd categorize it like Cardinal. Cardinal 1 is a craft that we got, and we know it's from a particular species of ETs, and it came from Zeta Reticuli, whatever star group. So in the report, I wouldn't say UFO. It would say identified alien craft, Cardinal 1 or whatever, something like that. And there's a number of other code names that were used. But as I said, once they're identified in a report, it's classified. So it's not going to be open to the public of what these things are. I'm only saying Cardinal because there are people within the scientific community has already released that information that we have 3 cardinals and we have 3 crafts that they recategorize as cardinals.
Rick, let me ask you this, Rick. Have you witnessed or been involved in any efforts to actively monitor or investigate civilian UFO research groups or individuals interested in the subject?
Yeah, in 1980, I recruited Bill Moore, who at that time was a member of APRO. I recruited him to a number of reasons why I recruited Bill Moore. One particular reason is because he was a member of APRO, and we wanted to penetrate every one of the UFO groups during that time frame and learn what they were doing. And we did that. And I recruited Bill Moore. Now, there were other agents around the United States that interviewed or that recruited other people within UFO groups. It wasn't just me, it was other people. And but Bill Moore did other things. Bill Moore also had contact with somebody inside the Soviet Union, and we used Bill as a conduit to get information outside the Soviet Union. So he was also worked in that category. But the U.S. intelligence did penetrate UFO groups and to determine what information they had. I don't know. I never caused any harm. When somebody comes to me and tells me MUFON is doing this, and this, I would report it back to headquarters. That's it. There wasn't any nefarious operations where we broke into the APRO office or CAUSE or any of these other groups back then and planted bugs or anything like that. I never did anything like that. It was just a collection of information.
Was it actually done? It wasn't by you. Was it somebody else?
Let me finish. Let me finish, Coley. Let me finish. So using the knowledge that you have and the lenses that you look through, with these agencies penetrating these groups, if we look at current time today, what would be some examples, if you see anything that's currently going on where potentially there may be some infiltration or some disinformation possibly going on just in our current day in what we're doing now?
Oh, yes, I see it. I've seen it for the last 5 or 6 years. People coming out and speaking out about certain things, that trying to discredit people that we know, people know within the UFO community, I mean, within the government, that they're actually the real thing, like Rush, but people are discrediting him. And I believe that there's deception. Now, let me say this. You'll never see the word disinformation in a U.S. intelligence manual. It's a deception operations. Counterintelligence deception operations. So there are, I'm sure there's a number of deception operations going on right now to discredit whistleblowers, because there's people within the government right now that don't want disclosure to happen. And you spoke, Bob, earlier about the Schumer Amendment. Now, there's a lot of problems with that Schumer Amendment, and there's a number of people that have spoken out about that. Number one, the United States government, will never give up any type of advanced technology that they have. In fact, there's laws we have on the books that protect special access programs. Title 50 United States Code, Title 9. I mean, there's all sorts of different federal laws that protects it. When there's some senators that confronted the majority leader in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, about this, and he said, well, we'll sort this out later when when it goes to reconciliation. Because remember, just because the Senate has this amendment in their National Defense Authorization Act doesn't mean the House has it, and doesn't mean the House will adopt it. The House has a separate National Defense Authorization Act, which doesn't have the Schumer amendment. So and so that would have to go to reconciliation, and that would create some problems. But there are people out there that are going to block this, and I'm a member of a group called Advanced Working Group, and we're pro-disclosure. We're doing everything that we can to disclose what we know, but we're doing it in a common sense manner. We know that we can't disclose everything that we did, and most of our group is of retired intelligence or retired military officers, and because we don't want the Russians to know about it. We don't want Iran to know about this, and we don't want North Korea to know about it, or China. So we have to do it in a logical, common sense manner, and I think we can do that without upsetting that. And I think we could get disclosure out to the public.
And I have something to pin on to that with the Advanced Working Group. I'm glad you brought that up. As I understand it, the Advanced Working Group is supplying whistleblowers to the Senate, Congress. And so especially with the Schumer Amendment and what you just spoke about with Congress and the Senate potentially having to jump through hoops in order to get information validated, with your efforts in the Advanced Working Group, and even if you want to talk about what the purpose of the Advanced Working Group is, do you find with now this new information that you are speaking about that there may be some sort of roadblock? Would you consider that your efforts a lost cause at this point? And if somehow you were able to attain information, what would you do with that?
Well, first of all, I don't know if you've realized on Thursday, Representative Bouchette and some others went into a SCIF, a classified environment, to be briefed on something. And the Department of Defense told them that, number one, they're not cleared to receive the briefing. 21 different programs relating to to UAPs were reclassified as special access programs, and they were protected under Title 50 United States Code 33939. And there's no, at current time, there's no congressmen, congresspersons, or senators that are cleared to be briefed. Now, that's certainly something that put up a wall against disclosure. We knew it was going to happen. We knew the Advanced Working Group. We have a lot of feelers within the government. We're more aligned with the Senate than we are with the House. We knew this was going to happen. So what's our alternate plan? When you work in the government, you always have a fallback. You always have an alternate plan. And we, as an Advanced Working Group, 99% of us are retired from the government or intelligence community. We have a few retired contractors too. We're gonna go out and find a media group that will listen to us. We have our own whistleblowers. I shouldn't say we have our own. They're government whistleblowers that have already been vetted by the government. But we want to go out and have our own news conference, private, non-government, with our own whistleblowers, and let them speak to the public. And that's what our plan is.
Would you consider allowing us to stream it also to get it out?
Well, it's something that our upper echelon is are working on right now.
But I'm saying,
I think we have.
When they come out,
we have it.
And talk about it.
We have a media company right now that will run with it. It's not a ABC, CBS, or NBC, or CNN or Fox. It's another news network that will run with this. Now, there's a lot of things we have to go through legally speaking, to
Right.
to be able to do this, and that's what they're working on. And they're in. Most of our group is actually on the East Coast, although there's a lot of us out here in the Western California, and so we have a secure email system that we correspond with. Not Signal, it's something else that we created ourselves, and so we keep briefed, and we have 3 of the I think of the number 1, 2, and 3 whistleblowers that will come forth and tell the public what they know without disclosing classified information.
What media company picked it up?
Well, I'm not going to talk about it now because we don't have anything firm with them yet.
Oh, okay. I had one other question when you were going back and talking about things like that. What do you think the abductions are all about? And how much of it is our own government?
I don't know any abductions incident that I investigated that was that we did it, that our government did it. So I can't speak to that. I don't know. If we're doing it, it's not. I don't know about it.
Right. You said that there was a certain 3-letter agency that maybe they were the ones watching, like the the kind of whatever you want to say, the contactees, the people who have had experiences with this. What branch of our government then is watching them, if it's not the CIA?
Well, I don't know what you mean by watching. I know that the DIA has their own abduction investigators. When a legitimate abduction, let me say this: during my time, the 12 years I investigated abductions, let's say there were, and they didn't come in every single day, but out of the 30 or so that came to me, only about 5 were actual legitimate abductions. Okay. So, and there's ways that we, we bring in psychologists and psychiatrists and hypnosis and regressions, government type, and even polygraphs that I guarantee you nobody can beat. They're counterintelligence polygraphs. They're not civilian polygraphs. But anyways, the legitimate abductions that I've seen, the ETs are after something from these people. They've been, it isn't a one-time thing. They've been following this particular person, either man or woman or child, for their life, and they're getting something from them. Again, we can't understand the extraterrestrials. The biggest mistake anybody can make is trying to rationalize with an extraterrestrial. They're different biologically. They come from a different star group. They have a different brain. They breathe different atmospheres. You can't get in their head, and you can't rationalize with them. So to ask what they want, all we can say is there's something. Some females, they take their eggs. They take their eggs, and we have had some males where they've taken semen from them. So for some particular reason, is it hybrid? I think that's a legitimate program. I think the government realizes that there are extraterrestrials out there that's trying to make hybrids in order to blend in to our society on Earth. And I think that's possible.
So, okay, and being a contactee, being an experiencer, being whatever, are you saying that I'm right now that an ET is with me, or the same ET has been with me since I've been born? Or, I mean,
well, I'm saying that during my time, up to 1988, I don't know what's going on now. I'm not, even though I work for Dr. Putoff.
For a little bit, take a break. I don't know. That's funny.
I don't know. I think that once you're in, you're in. That's the way the aliens.
What do they want from us? Other than you're saying eggs and everything else, but there's more to it. Anybody who's been through it, there's so much more to it. It's the craziest ride of your life. But I'm just wondering what is it like what they're keeping an eye on, or is that the case? Like, what do they need from us? Do you know
I
those
wish I
things?
knew. I don't know.
Okay,
I have
so then
no
when you're
idea.
looking for somebody and you have a category and you're like, oh, we got 30 people, only 5. How do you determine, like, is there a questionnaire, or like, because you know what I mean, like regression, things like that? What's like the determining factor where you're like, okay, we know?
Well, number one, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I have a degree in political science, a minor in education. I teach. My day job is I teach online. I teach math, advanced math, theory, probability, combination, permutation. So to answer those type of questions, I don't know. I think there's certainly a reason, and I'm sure the government knows.
What's your opinion on it?
I think that the ETs are after something that we have. Maybe they've given us something and they want to analyze it. It might be something so out of this world that we would never realize what it was that they were after.
We have a couple. Let me get a couple questions to you, Rick, before we go to viewer questions here. Do you feel, and it's just your opinion, do you feel that based on what you know and what you've seen in your time, that there is any threat when it comes to the ET presence? And then based on what you know or how you feel, are we in any position to defend ourselves?
Well, my own personal feeling is no, we have no defense against them. They can do what they want, when they want, and how they want to do it. We have certainly have advanced weapon systems, but I think they have a counter to any one of our advanced weapon systems. And I think some of the weapon systems that we have probably came from them through reverse engineering. So no, I don't think we can defend ourselves. Is there a threat out there? Yes, there is a threat. President Reagan knew about the threat. He was briefed into the threat, and that's why he made those several statements about being the Earth being in danger. Yes, and that's just something I don't. Although I know a little about it, I don't like to talk about it.
Definitely. And the last question I had before we go to viewer questions is, how do you envision the future of UFO disclosure and research? And what do you believe is the most important step forward in this movement to get there?
Well, that's a good question. We need to put pressure on our representatives, the House of Representatives, the People's House, and also the Senate. We have to, we have 3 distinct branches of the government, and we have to, minus the judicial branch, we have to put pressure on the legislative branch and the executive branch, which is the White House. And there's no reason why you, as a citizen, can't write a letter to the CIA or the DIA and express your opinion. You don't want to make it a threat, but you can express your opinion. Let them know what the public want. And we want disclosure. And there can be disclosure. We can do disclosure. And we've presented a paper, a 70 page paper to the government, to the Senate through Senator Rubio, excuse me, on exactly what we need to do. And all it is a chronological order of events that occurring from 1947, or maybe even before, that I don't know about, but 47 on, that involves our United States government involvement with the extraterrestrials. The number of crash sites we investigated, the recovery of crashes, the recovery of biologics, or interface that we've had. And there's a lot of instances where U.S. personnel, military personnel, had interface with extraterrestrials. We can tell the public this. This isn't classified anymore. The public already realizes it. We can't tell the public, hey, the Ebens gave us this directed energy weapon and it's made this way. No, but we can tell everything that we've done with extraterrestrials. That's not classified, and I think that would be a start in the disclosure program.
Awesome answer. Awesome answer. I have so many more questions for you, Rick, but we'll cut that
That's
there
what
and get
I
into
mean.
the viewer
We're,
questions here.
you know, the disclosure here.
We have Christy Hawkins, one of our super chatters. She just wants to know if you've ever heard of the Department of Naval Intelligence. And thank you.
Yes, the office. I've heard of the Office of Naval Intelligence. There were 6 when I was in. I had Office of Naval Intelligence agents go through the intelligence operation course with me, which is a very, very, very tough course. It weeds out people that would never make it in intelligence. In fact, my roommate at the secret facility that we trained in was a agent from Office of Naval Intelligence, and he went to do the same thing I was doing. So yes, I know about Office of Naval Intelligence.
All right. Our other super chatter, Carl Bittner, he just asked about the aviary, but you went over that already. So just wanted to make sure we showed his question here. But the next one is from Anonymous Rex. From Spaced Out Radio, Tim Senor. He asked, why do people potentially consider you one of the men in black?
Well, he should be asking the people that. I don't know. I wasn't one of the men in black. There were men in black, not literally, but we had the U.S. Intelligence Service had the 7602nd Air Intelligence Wing at Fort Belvoir. And that division there had these deep cover operatives that would dress up as men in black and went out and did things that we couldn't do, break into places, obtain things that people saw relating to UFOs or UAPs. So there was really a division. They didn't call them the men in black, but they were something like that. But they weren't out of our agency.
All right. And the next question comes from Flying Monkeys. Which 5-star systems did the races come from? Do we know?
Yeah, we know, but I think it's classified. I know that the Ebens came from the Zeta Reticuli star group, a binary star. And EBA 1 told us all about the star and what his planet was like. So I know that, but I'm not sure about the other ones.
All right. And then next question we have, okay, I guess they're asking about your experience in a cave outside the Tonopah Air Base searching for missing people.
Yes, I was assigned to Groom Lake Complex. I was an intelligence officer. There was an incident involving 2 women that had been abducted in Nevada, just outside Nellis Test and Training Range. They described a facility west or southwest of Tonopah Air Force Base, which is in the western part of the Nellis Test and Training Range. Then this is a highly classified area, but these 2 women that had nothing to do with the military were abducted. And they were released there, and they were actually found inside a classified area, trying to walk out. Anyways, they described where they were at, and so we went there. Myself, another agent, and a Air Force military policeman. We were all armed. We were normally armed. OSI agents are armed, and he was armed with an M16 rifle. And we found a cave. Actually a tunnel that led inside a mountain, Urania Mountain. And so we walked in there with flashlights. It was dark, and we followed it in, trying to figure out where if this was in fact the location that these 2 ladies had been. And as we were walking up this tunnel, we got up a certain probably 300 yards, and we saw that the area in front of us were all lit up. It was like a big, huge room. And as we kept walking, something moved in front of us that was, again, about maybe 200 feet away. It was a huge like a robot. We couldn't determine what it was. We shined our flashlights on it, and it appeared to be some sort of a robot to us. And so it was just three of us, and we didn't know what the unknown was. And so discretion's the better part of valor. So we turned around and walked back out, and we notified another authority, and we just happened to have a U.S. Army Special Forces team training in the area, and then they went in to confront whatever was in there. And I had no further accountability or access to that particular incident.
All right. And Randy Pettycourt asks, any dates when the aliens made first contact?
No, I wouldn't have that information. There's all sorts of dates thrown out there, but officially, the only date I know was 1947.
All right. Next question is, what can you tell us about the alleged alien attacks on villagers in Peru and Brazil?
Well, we sent our advanced working group sent some people down there, and to look into it. People who speak Spanish and Portuguese, but there's a lot of evidence that the attack came from non-humans. I just leave it at that, and that's what the information came back from us, from our group. But we were a private group. There's a United States military contingent down there that our group met up with, and they actually went into that area. Our group nobody would allow our group to go in. You could, if you're a private entity, you couldn't get in there anyways. We weren't. I think we were the closest our group could get in was about 50 kilometers. So they were 50 kilometers away. But the military, United States military, actually went in there. So it would be interesting to see what, if any, report that we could get from them on what they found.
All right. Next question. Super Crazy Movie Geek. Have you ever seen in person any non-human intelligence beings, dead or alive?
No.
Okay. Then we have Disarray. Could someone ask Rick if he was ever interviewed by either the HPSCI or the SSCI? And if you could explain what oversight means.
Oversight is the United States Congress overseeing, or the legislative branch overseeing the executive branch and the judiciary branch. We have three equal parts to the government, judicial, legislative, and executive, but we've created laws over the course of history allowing oversight. Now, oversight doesn't mean ruling the other branch. It just means looking at what they were doing and asking questions about why they're doing what they're doing.
All right. And Nancy Thames asks, what is the name of bad grays?
The bad grays are the haploids.
Haploids, okay. And looks like we have Super Crazy Movie Geek asking, at the Roswell crash, were any military personnel freaked out being around aliens?
That never came up on the movie, and obviously I wasn't around back then. I wasn't even born for another 10 years. So I don't know. There have been Bill Moore interviewed. He wrote the first book on Roswell, as we know, and Bill did interview an Army captain that said he was pretty upset after seeing the dead ETs. So that's the only thing I can relate it to.
All right. And then Paul Rizzo asks, ask Rick about Project Serpo. I don't know if you touched on that or not.
No, Project Serpo was supposedly an exchange program, between us, United States, and the Ebens. We supposedly sent 12 astronauts to the planet of Serpo, and they brought another EBA 2 here on Earth on an exchange program. Now, there's been hundreds of things written about that. There's been a lot of people talking about it. And there's the DIA refuses to release information on it. So I don't know. I wasn't around back then either, and I don't know that whether it was fact or fiction. But I believe that some of it was fact. I think we did have an exchange program. I don't think we sent 12 people. I think there was maybe 1 or 2, and maybe 3. But I think there was something that we did with the Ebens. But again, I don't think that the everything that's mentioned in what Victor Martinez released on Project Serpo is all fact.
All right. Derek Galloway asks Mr. Rick Doty, do you know of the 5 Eyes program?
The 5 Eyes, it's an intelligence program. And I think what I know would be classified. So all I can say is it's an intelligence program.
All right. And let's see. We have W. Decker. Please tell Rick that Wes says hello and ask him if he has an approximate time frame for when his group might start getting their whistleblowers to come forward to the public. Thanks.
Yeah, he was my good friend, and glad to see he's watching. We hope that if we can facilitate this thing, our group hope to have something by December, the first part between the holidays. If we can do all this in time, we have 3 legitimate whistleblowers. One of them is a United States Air Force major who flies an F-22, who had hands-on experience with a UAP. The second person is a civilian. He was a oil field worker up in Alaska. He was on a rescue helicopter that went out and was the first human being to the craft that the United States Air Force shot down in northern Alaska. And the third person we have is a person who was a military military remote viewer for 30 some years, and she remote viewed inside of ET crafts. She's a legitimate government retired person who has remote viewed thousands of different things, not all of them pertaining to UFO or UAPs. She did a number of really important things regarding intelligence. And she's never was in the military. She was a school teacher in Maryland, a mother of 2, a single mother of 2, was a teacher at inner city school in Baltimore. And she had this unique experience or knowledge about something that she finally came forward when she was in her 30s. And she realized then that she was a natural remote viewer, and she worked for the government for a great number of years. She's still alive, and she lives in Florida.
Wow. Okay. And this last question, I don't know if we should even be actually looking at this here. Rick, you've been great, and I'm totally appreciate you answering all these questions for us today. Let's see here. Yeah, we're gonna skip that. Did you have any questions, Coley? Anything else left on your list here?
No, I do have questions.
We have about 10 minutes.
Oh, there it went off. I don't know what the deal is with the mute button, so I apologize. No, Rick, I know that you've been out in DC. I know that you're very well connected, and want to thank you, for coming in and all this stuff. And the classifications of all of this. How do you see the 70-page detailed of what we would need to do that you presented to Congress? Are we the people able to see that?
I eventually, yeah, I'm sure that we'll.
Is this
We
something
have
that
a
can be like
private we have a
FOIA'd right
private
now, or-
website. We have a
Okay.
private website, but I think at the time that we do our disclosure, we'll release that. Yeah, you'll be able to see it.
Okay. So you have a private website for. So how close do you think we are to disclosure for government? We see the government's disclosure and the experiences, like their disclosure, is going to be two different things. But everybody's waiting on the government. So
Well, the reason we brought in, we actually have a number of really, really good people that are whistleblowers that have already been vetted by the government and approved as whistleblowers. And we have 2 abductees on that list. They're not experiencers or contactees. They're legitimate abductees. And there's one particular one who's very, very famous within the government, but not necessarily outside the government. She hasn't written any books or anything like that, but she helps the people who investigate abductions. She helps them greatly. And there's a DIA branch that does nothing but investigates these abductions. I don't, obviously, and I did then, and I'm sure there's a lot more information about abductees, contactees. I go to UFO conventions all the time. I've met a number of contactees and experiencers. I think they're legitimate. I don't have any question in my mind about them. I think they present some really good information about the ETs, at least about the ETs that they are having contact with.
So what information? I've seen the 3 surveys that have gone out. And it seems like the disqualifying question is, have you been in contact with a craft for an extended period of time? So is there a belief that if you have been in contact, like direct contact, the first one I had, I stood 30 feet away in MUFON, measured it to be 50 feet in diameter. I'm sure you could probably find it in your files right out the back door. But it was like something like at that point, like it was so crazy. It's like seeing something like that. But there's a lot of people that say that means that there has been some sort of abduction or contact or things like that. Have you heard that before?
No. Again, I'm not wouldn't be the expert in that area. I know that there are certain factors that the experts would take in consideration when dealing with abductees. I think the biggest one is the different types of regression that the government does that the private sector doesn't do. We actually, and I have to be very careful on this, but the government actually will put somebody through a hypnosis and give them a certain type of polygraph, and you can't lie because you're not dealing with you're dealing with subconscious. So, and the subconscious will tell the truth, even though the conscious won't. And there's other ways that I know, but again, I'm not an expert in it.
So, no, that's very interesting, though. That is very interesting. So there's obviously they have different techniques, and when if you go into somebody's office and have it done.
Let me ask this one question, Coley. This is one I wanted to get in there. Rick, I saw at one point you were able to validate Bob Lazar working at S4, and then I also saw at another time that you had even got your hands on a printout directory showing Bob's name. This would basically, seemingly without a doubt, validate Bob's story. Can you elaborate more on that? Like, had you done anything with the directory or?
Yeah, well, here's the problem with the directory. We obtained a directory and a access log for Nellis Test and Training Range, for Groom Lake Complex, Papoose, Southern Test Range, the Nevada test site, and everything but Tonopah. And this is the access log goes from January 1st of 1979 to December 31st of 1990. It's a huge access log. And the dot matrix, man, this is old stuff. Printer paper. Yeah. When we got it, it took us literally 8 months to verify the authenticity of it. First thing we did was check the people that we knew that had access, like myself and a lot of people that I worked with. And yeah, my name's in there, other people's names in there. And what we found on Bob Lazar is he had access there, but only from April of 1987 until June of 87. That's it. That's the only time frame that he's listed in there. Now, did he do everything he claimed to do in that short time frame? I don't know. But I tell you right now, that log is in Washington, D.C. right now with the Department of, with the Intelligence IG's office. They're going through it. That's one of the things they're using to vet people, the whistleblowers. You got to understand that when this whistleblower thing opened up, thousands of people came forth and said, I'm a whistleblower. I did this. I flew in a UFO around the universe, and all sorts of things. Well, they have to vet them. They have to investigate them, and they whittle it down to like 177 legitimate people that actually they could prove had access to these programs.
Wow. And what information do they want from them when they're under hypnosis?
I don't know. I'm not involved in that. I wouldn't have any idea. They would ask them certain questions. I don't know what they would be. I've never actually saw it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I've heard about it, and I read a document once on a person that we sent over to be analyzed. This was like 1987, maybe 80. Yeah, about maybe 87, maybe early 88. A woman. Actually, she was in the Air Force, and she proved to be a legitimate. They did all these different tests on her, and that's it. As far as what questions, I don't know.
Yeah. All right, we're at the end of the hour, Rick. So, do you have anything that you want to promote? Where can people find you, and what's coming up?
Are you leaving us, Rick, or can we get you for a little bit after the third hour for questions?
Yeah, I can stay for another 30 minutes.
All right. Awesome.
We'll do that. We'll carry on with you until the 30-minute mark on the next hour. For now, we're going to go ahead and pause for the cause with our very last break of the night as we get ready to jump into hour 3 and go 30 more minutes with Mr. Rick Doty here, only on Spaced Out Radio. See you in a minute.
Rick.
All right. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio after hour number 3 with me, your host, Mr. Rob G, and the awesome Nicole Coley-Weber, and Mr. Rick Doty hanging out for an extra 30 minutes. And for the final hour, we're going to ask some more questions, some audience questions, and we have questions for Rick as well. But before we jump into that, to all the space travelers out there, and you all are space travelers, consider taking the next step and join the club. That's right. You can join the SOR Space Travelers Club for as little as $5 buckaroonies by joining our Patreon. Get some official Spaced Out swag at spacedoutradio.com. And for the audience, please put your questions in caps. We have a lot of people in the chat tonight. The chat is rolling. We are not intentionally missing your questions. So please repost if we didn't get to them in the first round, and we will be sure to ask Mr. Doty those questions here in the next 30 minutes. So you can go ahead and start out, Nicole. I'm going to gather some of these questions here.
All right. I have a couple good ones. So going through like previous legislation that had the AARO, what do you think of Dr. Kirkpatrick running it? And what do you think of like what's going on with that?
Well, I know him. I should say I met him. So I just met him. I think he has he'll say one thing to somebody like myself in a secure environment, and then in public he'll say something entirely different. And I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I get it. So your time with Hal Puthoff, I'm very interested in that too, because you spent a lot of time with him in the 2000s. And from what I understand, like his background and Kit Green and the whole crew, but they were attached to Scientology. What was it like working with Dr. Hal Puthoff? Because for some reason, I've always, as much as I've not liked the TTSA, I've always like something about him. But yeah, can you tell us more about that?
Well, I met Dr. Puthoff, of course, in the Avary. I knew him then. In 1994, he asked me to come to work for him as a field investigator to do things for him in the field. It required a security clearance because he had a DARPA contracts, and I got it. It was easy for me to re-get my contract, my security clearance. So I worked from 94 until 2007. He's a fantastic human being. He went through some real bad tragedies with losing a son. He's a very articulate person. He demands excellence from his employees. But he was involved in so many different unique projects during the 12 years I worked for him. He had DARPA contracts, and he was working with DARPA different things. I can't talk about those because they're proprietary. And then he had his own project, 0 Point Energy. He was trying to prove the existence of 0 Point Energy, and he did. And that's even another story. And other projects, communication links through lasers and things like that. He was funded through DARPA and also through his other profit agency, Earth Tech International. And although I didn't work for Earth Tech, I just worked for him at the Institute and paid by the Institute. So that's Dr. Puthoff. And of course, he still had people, former remote viewers come by the Institute now and then and doing some, we would call it behind the scenes remote viewing of things. And that was fun to watch that. As I said earlier, the military doesn't call it remote viewing anymore. They call it thought projection acquisition, TPA. That's the actual, and that was changed probably about 12 or 15 years ago. So
So
that's
what
they're
did he tell
reporting.
you kind of the insight on what, because he, I mean, there's a lot of experiments that he had gone through. What, and they pulled, what was his name? Ingalls, like somebody even off the street, like for remote viewing. So I'm just wondering, like, I've tried whatever, but what is like the government's protocol? Like, how good are they, and like how much can they see?
Well, there's the military remote viewing is more disciplined than a
Mhm.
private remote viewing. You can go and go to a class, or remote viewing class. I did this some years ago just for the heck of it, because I live in New Mexico, Albuquerque. I went to one because they had one here, a seminar. It was a seminar, a weekend seminar. It started early Saturday, ended in the afternoon on Sunday, and I just wanted to see what it was about, and I wasn't very impressed by it. It wasn't taught by a military or former intelligence officer remote viewer. It was taught by somebody who they became a remote viewer by himself. Although one of the people in the class had taken a course by Ed Dames, Major Ed Dames, who was a military remote viewer, and a very, very, very good one. And I know Ed, and he's a very good remote viewer. So
how close can they? How clear is it to them? Because I've seen some of the drawings, and it's like, okay, but it's very interesting, especially now that it's a TPA. I'm just wondering how. What can you give us any tips on this, or?
Well, in a weekend, at the end of the end of the day, not end of the day, but on noon on Sunday, after lunch, we're going to now use everything that we learned yesterday and half a day the day before, that day, and we were supposed to remote view. There's a box up on the table, just a cardboard box, and there was something in that box, and we were to remote view that box, and so we had to draw what we thought was in there, and you concentrate. You have to clear your mind and all these things that you have to do. There's steps of things that you had to do, and then you remote view. And what was in that box was a pail, just like one of these old pails, with a half a mop in it. A mop that was cut off because it was in the box. That's what we had to remote view. And I drew a satellite dish because that's what I thought I saw, a satellite dish. Now, a lot of other people did the same thing, something to do with some kind of, I thought it was something, maybe one of these DirecTV satellite dishes they put in there. That's kind of what the thought that I got in my mind. But obviously that's not what it was, but I think I came pretty close because some people were really, really far off. But military remote viewers go through a year of training, one full year of training, 365 days of training. And so to try to teach something in a day and a half, where these military remote viewers are true professionals, that they remote view, they learn for one entire year. There's a big difference.
So have they achieved time travel?
I don't know. I think we have had a number of programs or projects trying to.
Because they were kind of the same people, Stargate, and they kind of all said
not necessarily. They won't say that. Okay. If you ask a military remote viewer today, and we know, I have some friends that are retired with our group that were remote viewers. Right. Don't even ask them that question, because they're going to rant and rave about something that's entirely different. So I'm not a remote viewer, so I don't know. I can't answer that question.
Okay. But, I thought you had stated before that you were. Do you ever have groups like on the side, like, or practice, or do they do it online? Or, I mean, I would say if they do, please invite me, because I would love to see this or know more. But that's just me.
What we've done when I was at work for Dr. Putoff, some of these remote viewers would come in and they would fool around to remote view something. And we always wanted them to remote view something like Mars or or Saturn or Neptune or Pluto or something. And so they would do that. Okay, I'll remote view Pluto. And this was before New Horizon. They spent a spacecraft up there, and it would be interesting to see what they, hear what they what would draw there. But it was just fooling around. It wasn't anything formal, and that's the only thing we did that I actually saw. Now, during my time in intelligence, I had operational remote viewers who was working with us on operations, but that's all classified. I can't go into that.
All right, and Rick, we for the last 15 minutes we have another list of audience questions, longer than before. So let me go ahead and jump into the first one. We have President Zaddy asking, what is the connection between Jack Parsons and Aleister Crowley and Project Babylon at JPL?
I have no idea. I don't know anything about it.
Okay. Then we have the Demon asking, what's at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base?
Well, back in the 70s and 80s, they had cryogenic chambers where they kept ET bodies, and that was underground. But that stopped probably about in 1981, and they moved everything to a brand new facility out at Grim Lake.
All right. And then we have Paramarv asking, can you comment on the footage of the alien being interrogated from the 90s, referred to as the Victor footage?
Well, that's one of the only legitimate video footage that's out there. It's real. It was smuggled out. There's in fact, a whole book being written and a whole movie being written about that. That there should come out pretty soon by John Stewart, my friend John Stewart. He's going to be the producer of it. And he has a lot more information than I would have about that. But it's real. It's the only one that I've seen on the internet that's actually absolutely real.
All right. Then we have Nicola Parry asking, can you please ask you about Valiant Thor?
Yeah.
I haven't
Okay.
I haven't met a single person in the intelligence community that could validate Valiant Thor that was a real human being. There was somebody like him at the Pentagon, but he was a Norwegian prince, or I think he was a prince from Norway. But not one single person would comment that there was really a Valiant Thor. And obviously I wasn't around back in those days. I was just a kid. So that's all I know.
I've seen testimonies on it. We actually had Laura Eisenhower on here the other day, and Val Thor allegedly, with her grandfather or whatever. It's interesting because I have seen testimonies, but then again, you don't know if it's just feeling something. Because wasn't he supposed to be from planet Venus or like Mars? I can't remember the whole 9 yards. Do you think that remote viewing and like people going to Mars and doing that, obviously it's not a leisure like trip that they're going on. What are they looking for? Usually, like, are they just in the process of training them?
Training
I feel like
who?
When you're talking about the people for not the remote viewing anymore, it's called something else.
Right. TPA.
It's like, okay, yeah. Once you get past the bucket and the, like, how far can they go and how sophisticated have they gotten?
Well, I mean, they can draw. If they say for instance, they're remote viewing a building, and they want to know in some room, they can remote view how to get into that room, looking at the lock on the door of that room, and once they get in, they can look at the filing cabinet, what type of filing cabinet it is, and then the stage 2, which is called upper level, is remote viewing inside that filing cabinet. So, I mean, that's what they can do. When I say that, when I said that they have a new terminology, thought projection acquisition, the system of remote viewing that was developed in the 1970s at Stanford by Uri Geller and his gang and Dr. Puthoff, the whole technique has changed. So TPA now is something almost entirely different than the old remote viewing. So there's different, they call it psychoenergetics, and psychoenergetics, and that's what they use. And there's different techniques, and I know some of it is classified, but that's what I know.
All right, Rick.
Thank
And
you.
we have Derek Galloway asked you 2 months ago, Rick, you stated the two girls were leaving school and a UPS truck captured them on video getting abducted. They vanished out of thin air and you had video. Can you share a bit, give detail?
Well, that wasn't me telling this. This is a story out of Canada. That was a story in the Canadian News Service that these two girls coming from school or leaving school. I'm not sure if they were leaving school or they were walking home from school or something. And there was a UPS truck that was at a house, and the drivers have cameras on their dashboards. And the camera recorded these two girls just walking near I think they were near a bush, and all of a sudden they just disappeared, just disappeared. And Canadian authorities investigated; they couldn't find it. And this is probably in the summertime. It was sometime in the summer, and that article is I don't know whatever happened to the video. I mean, the Canadian authorities have it, but it was reported in I think this was in a Alberta province that it happened, and that's what he's talking about.
All right. Now we have Neil Warden asking, is there a secret entrance under the Denver airport?
If there is, I don't know anything about it.
All right. And the demon says, ask about clones. Do you know anything about clones?
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's the hybrids. Yeah, there are hybrids, and but that is going to get in a lot of classified stuff, and I can't. We've known about clones all the way back to the 80s. So, but
The
there are.
synthetics, is that where they started?
Pardon?
The synthetics.
No, I don't know about that. I just know that the ETs have been manipulating our genetics for some time. I'll just leave it at that.
All right. Crazy Movie Geek says, do you know if the alien mummies are legit alien remains from Mexico, I guess?
I don't, I don't know. I've heard so many different stories and so many different explanations and opinions on that. And I'm not in a position to really evaluate any of that.
All right. Nancy Thames asks, do you know whether the moon is an alien satellite or not?
No, I don't know.
All right. Giorgio.
Have we ever been to the moon?
No.
Says, are my labs taking place? If so, who would be doing them? They would be illegal.
Military labs? Is that what they're talking about?
Yeah.
I'm sure there are, but I don't know anything other than what legitimate labs are. There's a number of military labs around the United States. I know that the United States government, and this is open source information, just built a brand new research and development lab near Pine Gap in Australia and near Alice Springs. So we're building them overseas. Maybe we're hiding something. That's my first impression is if we build something in Australia or New Zealand or wherever, we must be hiding something. And that's my opinion. That and I'm not giving anything away. I really seriously think that we're hiding something over there because we don't want Congress or somebody here to know what we're doing over there.
All right. Bones asks if digital data is still being collected on abductees, and while the intelligence community is so interested in them, are they considered a threat?
How advanced are they in the military? Because you guys,
I don't know. I think they're. If an abductee reports something to the U.S. intelligence, then we got a record of them, and then we're going to keep that record. They sign a waiver and they sign a contract and all sorts of things with us and within U.S. intelligence, and yeah, we would collect information. Are they considered a threat? You mean an abductees? No, I don't think the abductees would be considered a threat, if that's what they mean. But let me explain something real quick before I go. Every time U.S. intelligence is involved in an operation with an outside entity, we sign a statement or a contract with them. And one of the things a lot of people don't realize some people do realize now, is the Paul Benowitz case. We signed a contract with Paul Benowitz. That's why his family could never sue the government, because he authorized everything that we did. He knew everything that we were doing. So there wasn't any reason for him to question what we're doing. The outside people were always questioning it. Oh, you broke into his house, or no, he gave us permission to come in his house anytime he wanted to. It's on paper. And something like this, if we had an abductee that we were working with, we would sign some sort of a contract with him.
All right. And since you asked about that, since you brought that up, a person did ask earlier do you have any regrets or any feelings about that case? Paul
Benowitz?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Paul was a friend. Everything we did in our operation was sanctioned by the government, number one, and Paul knew about. We didn't hide anything from Paul. In fact, he cooperated 1,000% with us. And when he said he had all these things happening in his house, I said, Paul, would you allow us to go into your house and set up things? Yeah, absolutely, anytime you want. And he'd sign off. And when we were then trying to convince him that what he was seeing was UFOs, he was already a believer. He was a member of both APRO and MUFON. In fact, he was a field investigator for APRO. He believed in UFOs. He had believed in UFOs for 15 years before this. When the operation was over with in 1986, I went to Paul and I said, Paul, let me tell you the truth on everything. And I did. And he wouldn't believe me. No. You don't have to tell me that. I know what I saw and I know what I did. And so another thing about Paul, he smoked 5 or 6 packs of cigarettes a day. He drank quarts of Coca-Cola. He didn't eat right. He didn't get the right amount of sleep. He didn't have a perfect health. And so, and he harmed himself more than we ever harmed him. And so, but I do have some regrets. When you work in an operation like I did with U.S. intelligence, everything had to be an operational plan. You can't go to the bathroom without an operational plan. And I would write out an operations plan, send it to headquarters, and they would change it and say, oh, no, you got to do it this way. And they'd send it back to me and say, okay, you got to do A to Z. And so I had to follow their plan. And so everything that I did was sanctioned. I wasn't doing anything outside that, or I would get in trouble. And I get an award, an intelligence medal, from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, John Vesey. I was called to Washington. There are pictures on the internet of me getting an award from the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff regarding the Bennewitz case, because we did such a great job and a lot of information I can't even talk about during that operation. And we saw
not a black budget project.
It was absolutely, it was a black budget project. Yes.
All right. Derek Galloway asks you, Mr. Doty, can you give us details on Majestic 12 and Project Tobacco. More importantly,
He gave
Project
us all
Tobacco.
the names. He gave us all the names earlier for MJ12.
All
Like the
right.
Falcon, tell him if you go back and listen, he ran down the whole
no.
you didn't?
MJ12. No. That was
okay.
Avary.
Okay.
I'm
MJ12.
sorry.
Thank you.
The MJ12 documents came out from a guy by the name of Jamie Shandera. He got them from a person who we know now was involved in the government. And that's what they're talking about, the MJ12 documents. Are they absolutely real? No, probably not. Some of them, some of the information in there is factual and some's not. Project Tobacco, I don't know anything about Project Tobacco.
All right. And Rick, right now we're at the 30-minute point. I don't know if you have to cut right now or where you at.
If you have a few more questions, I can answer.
Okay, great. We do actually. There's still a few
you.
more. We have Nancy Thames asking, are there alien bases in the United States?
Well, officially, I don't know, but unofficially, yes. They're probably in the Southwest. They're probably in Nevada and possibly Utah. But that's just my own opinion. It's not anything that I gathered during my time. It's information that I've learned after I left.
All right. President Zaddy, F.U. Zaddy says, did the USS Nimitz happen?
The incident on the USS, yeah, that happened. That's well documented. Everybody saw the Tic Tac film. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Kim Jellin asks, do you ever get the call from the Men in Black that say you said too much on a podcast?
No, I don't get a call from the Men in Black, but I have gotten a call from the FBI, or actually not a call, but a visit in my house a few times that said, you said this and that, and that you shouldn't have said that. And I said, yeah, I shouldn't have. And I'd acknowledge, and that was it. That would be a twice that's happened.
All right. And since you were really forthcoming on the Bennewitz information, feel comfortable posing this one to you here. Rick, thanks for coming. Question is, I don't think Schneider was suicide. Does the situation bother you and the other former intelligence operatives?
Phil Schneider. Well, number one, Phil Schneider wasn't who he claimed to be. He never fought any wars under Dulce. His injuries, his fingers and his chest, they were all done when he worked as a high voltage technician. His wife fully admitted it later. It's all over the internet. Her affidavit, that's all taken care of. Now, the suicide, he was killed under suspicious circumstances. And he could. I don't think it was a suicide. No, I agree. I think somebody murdered him. I think that's a murder, and it should have been investigated that way, rather than the sheriff's deputy saying, "Oh, it's just obvious it was a suicide." No, I don't think it was a suicide. I think he was murdered.
Okay. We have Neil Warden asking, does AI black goo from another universe have an impact on our reality now?
I don't know anything about that. I wouldn't know where to answer that.
And we have, looks like the Demon asks Rick, what's his favorite rock band?
Oh, my favorite rock band was ZZ Top.
ZZ Top. All right. You heard it here. And that was actually, looking back, because those were the ones we pinned. Let me see if anybody put one in at the last moment. It doesn't appear. So that would be it, Rick. Yeah, I totally appreciate you coming in. And 1,000 more questions that I have for you. So I'd love to have you back at some time, Rick. Let's finish the conversation. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, in fact, I do have a book out there that's being cleared through government channels. It's been held up for almost 24 months. I had to rewrite a lot of chapters, but hopefully it will come out in the very, very near future. And if you could have me on back on your show to promote that, then I would be happy to answer any questions.
That's a for
That's
sure.
awesome.
That's a for sure, Rick. Once again, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us, Spaced Out Radio. Is this your first time here, Spaced Out Radio?
Yes, it is.
Wow, totally, it's an honor, and I totally appreciate you coming in. We had a great time with you, and we would love to promote that book when it gets ready to come out. So please just let us know. And outside of that, guys, normally when we have our guest lead, we go to a break. But I guess you could just exit whenever you like, Rick, and say wave bye to the audience.
Mr. Bob.
Hey,
Nicole,
yes,
thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and I'll be in touch.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir. Take care. All right, guys. That was the Rick Doty interview. Rick was a really great guy. Had a lot of great information. You guys had a lot of great questions out there. He stayed to answer a lot more. And that Rick Doty, ladies and gentlemen, Rick Doty. Okay. So what we'll do now, we have a few minutes left. We have like 25 minutes left. So I'm thinking maybe we can pull out the old school SOR trivia, because we had a champion, and we did it so long ago, I can't remember who the champion was. I'm sure somebody can remind me. But we can jump into some Halloween themed stuff to kind of just close out the show. And let me bring the banner up for that and get some of that good old background music for our little thingamajig here.
Yeah, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more. We got a lot of fun stuff coming up.
Yeah, like and subscribe. Bob Lazar, film producer, tomorrow talking about the film. Luigi Venditelli, he's set up, he's ready to go, and he's ready to blow your mind tomorrow with images, potentially, from what I know, of the film. And I'm talking about done in Unreal Engine 5, completely lifelike imagery, and the film is going to be awesome, amazing. You definitely want to be there. If you recall, a few weeks ago when I interviewed Jim Goodall did hint at this. He didn't say for sure, but he hinted at something coming big with Bob Lazar that was coming soon, and he couldn't really say anything. And this is it. So he'll be here tomorrow. Look back.
I got it out of him one night. And then I'm like, oh, Bob Lazar is coming out with a movie. So, yeah, he tripped up earlier. It's definitely happening. If he's in the audience, he'll probably be mad. But you did say that, Jim.
Let me see.
I'm like going to have to go through and just type everything up that, like, and rewatch this. There was so much information. My head's just like, man. That went really well, though, I thought.
Yeah, definitely did. And you know that's what a Rick Doty interview is going to be. He's going to have great information. We know so much about what he's already done. And yeah. So I'm glad he touched on Bennewitz. That way I could get the question asked. If he didn't broach the topic, then we weren't going to go there. So I'm so glad that he did. And Bomber, that was for you.
He definitely
still out there, Bomber.
Does go through it, and you have to realize there's two sides to every story. And it's like you can't imagine walking in and getting those kind of orders, but then like Lazar now is going to come out and he's going to tell his story because he said it wasn't exactly told the way that it was. So everybody's kind of trying to come out and tell their actual story, not the partial story. So it's going to get interesting. Definitely.
Yes, I agree. And all right, so we're going to jump this off. we're going to jump this off. We have about 20 minutes left here. So the way this works is get your fingers ready. I know Derek Galloway cheated last time and used voice to text. So yeah, not going to go ahead and use voice to text this time. So it's first in the chat with the answer wins that round or that question, and then we tally up the most correct answers at the end, and the winner actually gets to have their name for all eternity posted in the comment section of this video. So of the Rick Doty interview video, your name will be posted with fire emojis congratulating you on your trivia win for all of eternity, and you will be shout out on the Spaced Out Radio social media. And this is for now. As this thing builds, maybe down the line we'll be able to make merch be the prize. But for now, this is what we're doing: bragging rights amongst your peers.
Yeah, Dave, we need some merch.
And here we go. So, and Susan Alloway, there is an after hours call in tonight. The late night call in at the Social Dig, 15 minutes after this show ends. So yeah, we love to have people come over and tell their stories. That's what it's for. It's a stage, a platform for you to get it off your chest. You've never opened up and said anything, that's the place to do it. So you can follow Derek Galloway. I'm sure he'll post a link at some point here. And we're going to jump right into this Halloween themed trivia. So I don't know how, so we'll just go with it. So question number 1, what is the traditional purpose of a jack-o'-lantern? Let's see who knows this out there. What is the traditional purpose of a jack-o'-lantern?
For some reason I saw a TikTok video on this.
Can anyone say it? Can anyone say what is the traditional purpose of a jack-o'-lantern? I'm gonna go with Skip to Malou. Skip to Malou. Yeah. Skip to Malou. It's to ward off evil spirits, or as a decoration during Halloween. To scare the evil away is good enough for me. Let me save that answer. Great job, Skip to Malou. Question number 2. Which country is believed to be the birthplace of Halloween? Which country is believed to be the birthplace of Halloween? Who says it was the first answer? Said browse the first one to answer. Let's see. I'm just looking there. We're going back in my chat, making sure. Oh shoot! Keep the spirits away. Yeah, I'm sorry. Skip to Malou. Here's the problem with this. Before we go any further, the way our chat goes here, like when everybody rushes in, then the comment comes up, but then a few seconds later it'll like reorder. So I'm gonna have to like wait after we get the answers to see. But I'm sorry, I have to skip to Malou. I hate to do this because I said I'm gonna give it to you both. I can't just take it away. But Susie B was technically the first one, as it all lays out in the chat. So, all right. So let me go ahead. So the country, birthplace of Halloween. Let me see who put the first one in here. Looks like it's Bones. See, Doubleday Clements, I know what you were saying. You didn't spell it right. Gosh. But I'm going to give it to you. I know that's just a typo, typing fast. It's Ireland. I know that's just a typo. All right. Question number 3. Yeah, I know you guys are typing fast, and so I mean, if it's an obvious typo, then we'll give it. But if it's an incomplete answer, then that'll be different. Question number 3: what do vampires turn into when exposed to sunlight in folklore? What do vampires turn into when exposed to sunlight in folklore? All right. All right. The answer is actually dust. President Zaddy got it. It is dust, not ash. It doesn't show ash, unfortunately. All right, Zaddy. All right, let's see. Okay. Question number 4. In what year did Michael Myers first appear in the movie Halloween? In what year did Michael Myers first appear in the movie Halloween? All right, looks like I have to let the chat settle. Okay, so it looks like it's sticking with old Derek Galloway. 1978 would be the year that Halloween, Michael Myers appeared, first movie. Still one of my favorites right there. Although the Rob Zombie one was pretty scary to me too. All right, question number 5. What is the name of the ghost in Charles Dickens' novella A Christmas Carol? Wonder who knows that. What is the name of the ghost in Charles Dickens' novella A Christmas Carol? You got to dig deep for this one, because this, man, we talking about going back. Yeah, you need first and last name. I see some of you are on the right path. All right. I see the correct answer, and let me make sure. Susan Alloway. Jacob Marley. Correctamundo. All right. Question number 6. What is the name of the masked killer in the movie Scream? This one, it should be blowing up right now. What is the name of the masked killer in the movie Scream? Justin Bieber. Yeah, that's right. No, that's not it. The masked killer in the movie Scream? Ghostface Killer, Harold, Billy. In the movie Scream. You know the movie Scream? I would have thought everybody would be pass. The name of the killer in the movie Scream? You remember Scream? They made a whole bunch of costumes around this character. It's like the funny face. You got what? Yeah. Jesus. Yeah, okay. I think I see it finally. Let me see. Okay. Chat. Okay. Looks like the first one in the chat. Let me. Oh, this chat is so funny, dude. technically, and I have to go back because you have to let the chat settle. So it shows the first person that actually put it in, according to this, is none other than Presidential Zaddy, Ghostface. Ghostface, y'all, Ghostface. All right. Which author wrote the classic Gothic novel Dracula? What author wrote the classic Gothic novel Dracula? All right, letting the chat settle. All right, first person who put in would be Bram Stoker. Dead fish cheese spread. All right, all right. What is the name of the supernatural being that transforms into a wolf during a full moon? The name of the supernatural being that transforms into a wolf during full moon. He said, I'm going back like about 12. You gotta forget, this chat is, the way it loads in StreamYard is real funky. So let me go, I just want to make sure. He said Bones answered that first. Yeah, Bones just said Bram. It was Bram Stoker. Could be talking about anybody. Let's see. Yeah, let's see. I'm going to give you, this is a tough one. I mean, I have, it's werewolf. Not a lot of people spelled it right. Surprised, because I wouldn't, truthfully, if I just had to think of how to spell it, I would probably get it wrong. However, and it's werewolf with an F. So Susie B, misspelling and all, but it is Susie B. All right. So, which fruit is traditionally bobbed for during Halloween parties? Which fruit is traditionally bobbed for during Halloween parties? So let the chat settle. It's funky, funky, funky chat. Make sure. Okay. Oh no, y'all. Zaddy running away with this thing. President Zaddy. Zaddy for president. Apples is the answer. Apples is the answer. All right. So, what is the name of the friendly ghost in a popular cartoon series by Hanna-Barbera? quote unquote friendly ghost in a popular cartoon series by Hanna-Barbera? Sovereign Cosmic Wild Man. It is Casper, the friendliest ghost. All right. Wow, I didn't know this. Which famous magician died on Halloween in 1926 and is known for his escape acts? I had no idea. Somebody knows, though, because I see the answer. Yeah. Bomber. It is Houdini. It is Houdini. Everybody knew Houdini. I had no clue. What is the name of the town where the events of The Nightmare Before Christmas take place? The name of the town where the events of The Nightmare Before Christmas take place. What's the name of the town? This has to be the last one, too, so we have to tally up the votes. Oh, no, someone's really close, but not close enough. The name of the town. Nightmare Before Christmas. Oh. Okay. Someone has it. Great job. Great job. Susan Dalloway got it. Halloween Town is the name of the town. All right. So that's it. Let's tally up the votes. And it looks like Skip to Malou show has won. Susie B has won. 2. Double Date Clements has 1. President Zaddy has 3. Derek Galloway has 1. Susan Alloway has 2. Dead Fish Cheese Spread has 1. Sovereign has 1. Bomber has 1. So the winner is Presidential Zaddy, who will be going in the comment section with fire emojis for all eternity for this win today. And also on shout out on the Spaced Out Radio social media page. Congratulations, President Zaddy. Came through and won this thing. All right, guys, that's been great. Great trivia. Rigged, the Men in Black page, or no, it wasn't rigged. Zaddy did it. Give it up for Zaddy. Zaddy did it. Great job, Zaddy. All right. So, Nicole, before we get up out of here, do you got anything to say to these lovely people?
Sorry, I moved my mic away. I absolutely love the chat. So I thank them all for being here. And it's cool to get to know people like, Derek, and I know, even everyone that you keep seeing. So we really appreciate the support that you give. And, I get a lot of side messages too, and I really appreciate that. So I absolutely love the chat. I always promote the chat. I'm like, you got to get in the chat. And I even like when other shows are going, Dave or Jessica, love the chat. So yeah, thank you all. And it's, you are making it what it is. So hopefully we keep moving forward and keep everybody engaged and informed. Definitely. So,
All right.
yeah.
I love it. So, as we prepare to bring the show to a close, I want to thank all the super chatters for tonight. And that would be Christy Hawkins, Carl Bittner, W. Decker, Carl Bittner again, Flying Monkeys, and CS with the super sticker. All right. So to all the space travelers out there, consider taking the next step and join the club. That's right. You can join our SOR Space Travelers Club for as little as $5 per month by joining our Patreon. We appreciate your support to all our viewers and listeners across the globe. Thanks for tuning your frequency to Spaced Out Radio, where we do what we do best. And what's that, you ask?
We own the night.
We own the night.
Yeah.
See y'all tomorrow night and see y'all over the call-in show. 15 minutes. Take care.